Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with Dr. Anthea Todd. Anthea is the founder of Female Fundamental, a women's health business that cares for the women lost in the space between, where women have been told there is nothing wrong with them, but still feel like they are. With a background in chiropractic, a dual master's in women's health medicine and reproductive medicine, and expertise functional medicine, bioenergetics, and neuro-emotional technique, Anthea is reshaping women's health. In this week's episode, expect to learn about what your body is really telling you, what Anthea would change about the healthcare system, why PMS symptoms aren't normal, how your job might be affecting your health, being alive and aligned, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Now, guys, before we start this week's episode of the podcast, I want to talk to you about the Life by Design Mastermind. The Life by Design Mastermind is the mastermind for go-getters and high achievers who are looking to create a more successful, fulfilling, and balanced life by design. If you're serious about transforming your life, achieving your goals, and living a life on your terms, then the Life by Design is your golden ticket. Head over to the show notes and click on the link for more details about the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one of the finest human beings on planet Earth in the house today. Dr. Anthea Todd, welcome to the podcast.
What is up? Thanks for having me, B-Dog.
It's good to have you here. It's really good to have you here. There's so much we can talk about today, which I'm excited to see where it takes us. Before we get started, can you give the guys a 60, 90-second spiel of who you are and what's got you to where you are today?
So I'm Anthea Todd, or some people call me Dr. Anthea. Some people think of me as the skateboarding doctor. So I am a woman in Australia living on the Gold Coast, but I primarily was trained in chiropractic. Then I went on and studied 2 masters, one in women's health medicine and reproductive medicine, because I kept on seeing patients that were falling into that space between not knowing what the hell was going on with their body, knowing that something was wrong, but not getting answers in the traditional medical field. So yeah, I went on and studied that. And then I studied some functional medicine and also some energetic practices too. So basically what I do is I help people understand what the hell their body is telling them, and doing it in a really unbiased way, helping people look at it through a medical, functional, and energetic lens, and having fun whilst we do it.
Have you ever pulled off a kickflip?
Absolutely not. I can't ollie. I'm more of a longboarding skateboarder.
What about have you ever tried an ollie off like a little ridge? So it's not really an ollie, but it kind of looks like one. Have you ever tried that?
Off a ridge, like off
like a little
jump.
A little jump. Yeah.
No, is this where I tell you the only time I've ever broken a bone was skateboarding when I was 9? So people online tell me, you should wear a helmet, all these different things. I'm like, yeah, I know, but now I just do it safely. I'm not bombing down hills and trying to do things that are outside of my limits.
I also don't know if your Instagram videos would be as sexy as they are if you wore a helmet. I feel like it'd be a little bit,
No.
I know helmets are safe and everything in the practical, but I don't know if you would look quite as good as you do with a helmet on doing an Instagram piece. Do you feel that way?
I think it creates my style, because I normally I don't plan it. I just feel like, I feel like going for a skate, and then it just comes to me. Like the helmet, it's an extra step. I'm doing it safely. I'm like, you know what? It's all about having some fun.
Yeah. What were you trying to do when you broke a bone at the age of 9?
I broke my collarbone. I was going down a hill and I was just going fast, and I steered onto the grass to slow down, and it hit a rock, suddenly stopped and landed on my shoulder and broke my collarbone in 2, which isn't very fun.
What do you think your body was telling you at the age of 9 when you broke your collarbone?
Probably don't go so fast down the hill.
Cool, isn't it? We're always getting feedback, You know what's really interesting about what you just said is you've studied in the traditional field, but yet in a different way, you're also challenging the traditional field and the people that fall through the gaps of the medical system. How do you dance between a system that has helped you develop the skills that you have got, and also a system that has a lot of cracks in it?
Yeah, I think it probably goes back to my childhood. So both my parents are chiropractors. My grandma became a naturopath when she was 50. Why that's important is because our mind frame of the body has always been, it's telling you something. It's doing it for a reason. It's not making you sick because it's trying to get back at you because you're inherently broken. It's doing it because it's trying to tell you that you need to slow down, or you need more of these vitamins, or you need something. So that's sort of how I've always looked at the body. And I've just naturally had this overwhelming fascination and curiosity with it. I think it's like the best thing ever. So when I'm using that medical lens, I think when I went and studied the masters, I know when we were talking about things, say, for instance, heavy menstrual bleeding. I know you experience it that yourself, Blake.
It hurts. I'm uncomfortable with it when it
sometimes
happens
it
for
can
me.
hurt. It's not normal if it does. There would be, it's like, look for endometriosis. And if it's not there, if there's no uterine fibroids, there's nothing that you can medicate or remove surgically, then we don't really know why it's happening, but have this pill to sort of subside your hormone fluctuations. And I was just like, that doesn't make any sense though, because the body's obviously doing it for a reason. So what I like about the medical field is that it's, if you really need it, there's something acute, like say, for instance, you break your collarbone when you're skateboarding. It's like, well, I need things that are going to stop the pain, and I need a sling, and I might need surgery depending on the severity of the break. So it's important in that aspect. But when we use it to band-aid, or we always constantly use that mind frame of my body isn't inherently strong. It doesn't actually know what's going on, and I have to sort of hold it together, and I'm worried that something's going to happen. I'm worried that I'm going to get cancer. I'm worried that these heavy periods mean this, or I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to fall pregnant. It's all of this fear, and we're coming from, we need something external to fix us. But my mind frame's always been, your body inherently knows what to do. And if you're experiencing symptoms, then it's your body trying to tell you something. It's trying to tell you that you're not giving it what it needs in some way. So I think, I like to think of all the different types of healthcare, medical, functional, energetic, as it's not a ranking system. It's not that medicine is the best, and then if that doesn't work out, then maybe you go and try a naturopath or a nutritionist or a chiropractor or a functional medicine doctor. And if that doesn't work, then it's like, oh my gosh, I'll throw caution to the wind. I'm going to see a psychic, or I'm going to see a kinesiologist. I'm going to see like someone else. I need to find the answer, right? It's not that it's ranking, it's matchmaking. So you need to be able to listen to your body and use that as a guide for the type of care that you need.
Isn't it fucking amazing that we have these bodies that talk to us, which is the opposite way around from the traditional belief of like, oh, there's some kind of symptom, which is an issue. Whereas what you're saying, and what I've been a big believer of for a long time, is the symptom is a signal and your body talking to. Like, once you grasp that different way to look at it, it's fucking magic. Like, when did that shift for you where you're like, oh, how cool that we have this intelligence that's talking to us, as opposed to seeing that as an issue?
I don't know whether it shifted. That's what I've been born with. Like, that's
Your
what
parents are fucking geniuses.
That's what, my belief has always been. I guess it does shift, and it is something that you constantly have to come back to, because society and everything that we're driven into with advertising, with social media, with everything that's around us, you're inherently broken in some way. If you have this thing, you'll be fixed. Whether it's you get the sports car and that's going to fix you, or whether it's you have this surgery and then that's going to fix why you have the endometriosis or the PCOS or the whatever it is. It's actually really looking and going, oh, okay, like I am actually, as cheesy as it is to say, like I am actually whole, and my body, if you always believe that your body is looking out for you, then you can sort of go, why is my body doing that? It's helping me in some way, which I often say to patients when they're coming to me and they've got a whole plethora of different conditions that they've struggled with. I say to them, like, okay, well, if you can just hold for a moment the belief that your body is always looking out for you, what do you think it's trying to tell you with these symptoms? And sometimes that can be like a really big shock to the system, particularly when you've been trying to find answers for 10 years or 20 years. And you're like, oh, this is just the path that I'm going to go down because this happened to my mum, or this happened to my aunties, or this is just what happens. This is normal for everyone to feel. But when you can actually challenge it and go like, no, what is my body actually telling me? And maybe it is that you do need medication or surgery right now. But a lot of the times it's like, okay, it's really just telling you that it doesn't have what it needs. And what I talk about, what it needs are your 4 female fundamentals. I've talked about it a lot. It's in my book, which is your nervous system, metabolism, nutrients, and blood sugars, all of those to be balanced. And when that happens, our body has the balance. And that's our body's main job, is to balance. When it's out of balance, we get symptoms. When it's in balance, we feel amazing. But then also sometimes it can be those smaller energetic whispers that it's like, I've had numerous patients that have had endometriosis, and their doctors are like, you're going to need surgery, you're going to really struggle to fall pregnant. They have debilitating pain for a whole week of the month. They're like out, they can't go to work, they can't do anything. And this particular patient, who's also a friend, she changed jobs. And she didn't think that she was stressed. She liked her job, but she's like, it was better for her to swap jobs at the time. When she did that, all of her pain went away. No issues. She has one child. She's got another one on the way. She's just about to pop with her second one. So no issues there. So, but when I actually caught up with her for coffee the other day, and she's like, yeah, you know what? I didn't think that I was stressed. I was doing the job that I wanted to do. I studied for years and years and years to do it. But she's like, but when I look back, she's like, I was not happy. I didn't like it at all. Now I love what I do. And before I was convincing myself that this is what I needed to do because I'd worked so hard to get there. And I needed to keep doing it. And it paid well. But it was like her body was actually clearly telling her that it wasn't for her. So that's some people might think that's woo-woo, but let me tell you, when you actually experience that yourself, it is not at all. So that's why I always encourage people to listen to their body in those three frameworks: the medical, the functional, the energetic. Sort of like thinking you can use a microscope, binoculars, and a telescope. They're all going to see different things. They all work. It just depends on what you're trying to look at, trying to find that root cause.
Have you read Gabor Mate's The Myth of Normal? Do you resonate with it a fair bit, like off the back of what you've just said?
Yeah.
I know you and I obviously we did a lot of work around marketing together. And one of the things that was significant in that course is bringing people into the awareness phase where, as you said, they might think it's normal because society tells them that it is, or they might think it's normal because they've experienced it for 10, 20 years. What are some of the most common that's not normal type responses that you see from females? I'm guessing the period pain is one that is normal.
PMS? Like how much is PMS normalized? Like all in movies, TV shows, just in general life, partners will be like, oh, like they've got the period, I better make sure like there's chocolate in the fridge, or they've got ice cream. You have to be generally nice to them. Like, yes, our hormones do shift, and yes, we can feel more sensitive at those times. But if it's impacting your life greatly, that is not normal. Like if you're ripping someone's head off and people don't want to be around you, you're walking on eggshells, that is not normal. Pain is not normal. Dreading your period in any way is not normal. It's actually, when you have a healthy period, it's actually an amazing thing. And you love it. You're like, okay, great. This is telling me all of this information, and it's not hindering my life in any way. I can still go to work. I can still catch up with friends. I can still do all of the same things that I was doing. So that's one thing. Using your bowels every day is normal. Lots of people go, oh no, I can't use my bowels unless I have a coffee in the morning. It's like, oh, I haven't done my morning poo, but I'll have a coffee and that'll come. It's like, okay, if you didn't have coffee, would it not come? That's not normal. Like lots of people think it is. It's not normal to wake up and feel exhausted, but most people do. They're like, oh, I need my morning coffee to do that. So there's so many things.
That exhausted. Have you spoken about that exhausted one on socials? I reckon that'll go off.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Shani does not change at all during her cycle. Like when it comes to PMS, it just isn't. I know I can't slap her. Like I can't walk past the kitchen and slap her as hard on the ass during that time because she's more sensitive.
I was thinking, I'm waiting for you to say, where are you slapping her? I need to come have a chat.
Because she's more sensitive during that time. And I'm like, okay, I need to be a little bit mindful of that. But outside of that, like there's not much of a change for her at all in terms of, it's interesting because again, I've been in relationships where I'm like I better duck for cover during that period. And then done, it's like, I wouldn't even, unless it interrupted our sex life, I probably wouldn't even know that she was going through that stage.
Yeah. But
that's normal. That should be.
Yes, that's healthy. It's normal to have some fluctuations because your hormones are changing, and your hormones aren't just about having a period or falling pregnant. They're actually, you have receptors all over your body that are sensitive to your hormones. So your hair will change, your skin will change, your thoughts will change, all those things will change. But if you're noticing that you're drowning in symptoms, they're affecting your life or the people around you, then that's a problem. And that's telling us that those hormonal fluctuations are a lot larger. They're more like a tsunami versus a wave that you can surf. Yeah.
If you were in charge of the medical system and you had to change the whole way in which GPs service their clients and customers, what would you change?
That's a really good question. I often think about this. I often think, like, if I gave birth to a baby girl right now, what would I want the healthcare system to be like? Like, how would I want her to live? just in general with health. And I think what I would do, and there are some things that the Medicare is looking into at the moment, I do know, but I would stop GPs being the bottleneck or being the funnel that you have to go to in order to see whoever it needs to be. And I would also educate. The main thing that I would do is actually educate people, like so that we're not victims of circumstance or we're not giving responsibility over to someone else for our health. I think that's the most dangerous thing. I think when we can be educated and also know that our body is looking out for us, those two main things, then we can really take charge of our own health. So when we do go to the GP, and they are amazing, but they're looking through one lens, they're looking for, do you need me? And what they can do is give you medication and surgery. So if we always use that as that's the funnel. So if you don't need medication or surgery, then there's nothing wrong with you until there is, because you're missing all the warning signs, and then you just have to keep going back, keep going back, keep going back. And then eventually they'll be like, oh, now it's shown up with the blood test. You have this. It's like, oh my gosh, thank goodness someone can tell me something's wrong with me. I think that whole paradigm is just fucked. You just wait, and then you feel happy when someone can tell you something's wrong. It's like that just doesn't make any sense to me. So what I would do is I would educate people and also help them believe that their body is the solution, not the problem. It's telling them things. So that, and then also in that, educate people on when do you actually need medication and surgery? And then when do you actually need people that can help you in that functional space? And then when do you need people that can help you in that energetic space? I think that's the most important thing. So you become the decider, not allowing the system to do that.
Do you think that is by design for a monetary gain? The
Yes.
system. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's a business, and money does make the world go around. Yeah. That's a huge component. And yeah, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn or this is going to shock anyone. Of course it is.
I fucking hope it doesn't shock people, but I get the feeling that there's a portion of society that hasn't seen that yet.
Well,
The
when
last
we're
3 or 4
thinking-
years, there's probably a bigger portion who can see it, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing there's still a portion of society who can't see that healthy people are not profitable people.
Yeah, I think if we think about it like, and I use this analogy in my book, like medication and surgery is it's not a bad thing by any means, but it's bad when we mismatch it, when we actually don't need it. So if you are someone that can't read, doesn't mean you're blind, but you just can't read. Is it helpful if someone just reads for you? No, because you never learn how to read, right? So it's the same if your body and your organs have the ability to function, aka you can read, you're not blind, right? But you just don't know how. It doesn't make any sense to have a medication or surgery that's going to continue to read for you. But if you have something going on in your body that, say, for instance, your ovaries have been removed or your thyroid has been removed, you literally don't have the gland that can produce that hormone. So you are literally blind. You need someone to help you read. Yeah. So you need a medication. It's the same thing. So I think the biggest thing is to really just when we're using things to help us read, even though we have the ability to, that's when it's not fixing the problem. So we're just medicating and medicating and medicating. Then we have another medication to stop the side effects of the other medication. And then that comes with the side effect. And then those things come with the side effect. And then we just become this huge cash cow, and we don't actually address why we can't read in the first place. We're not teaching our body to read in the first place. And I think that's the most important thing to do. And that's that functional lens, is actually giving our body the things it needs to be able to function, aka read.
What do you think is the most overprescribed drug in 2024?
In 2024, I know Ozempic has a big, people are talking about it a lot.
Kay got Ozempic, didn't she? I heard.
Yeah, well, they talk about like the Ozempic face. You can sort of tell different.
What do they look like? I don't know enough about it.
Quite
Gaunt.
Like
that's sexy.
Tucked in. So that is, I would say, from like a lot of the patients that I've worked with, like reading through their history forms, the most repetitive medication that came up was an antidepressant of some kind, a anti-reflux of some kind, and a contraceptive. They would be the top, and a blood pressure medication, probably blood sugar and blood pressure. They're the sort of top 5 ones that I would see a lot of. And all of those things are linked in the body. Everything is linked in the body. If you have poor blood sugar regulation, then your moods are going to be off. and then your hormones also alter.
When
So
it
it's just
comes
like,
to like drugs, like antidepressants or whatever, is there rules and regulations amongst the governing body that oversees your practice that controls what you can and can't say about big pharma and antidepressants and stuff like that?
possibly, I don't know, I haven't trialed it yet, APRA. I do think they have their place, whether I know you're probably alluding to Johan Hari's work
Yeah.
and whether they are more effective or not than just a placebo. I
Mm.
think if you're getting benefit, you're getting benefit. I don't really.
Whether it's a placebo or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's important to recognize the other way too. And that's where we can bring in the energetics, right? The energetics is the things we can't see that create what we can see, aka placebo. So I think a lot of if you're doing a research study, randomized control trial where they compare a placebo and an active substance, if there's a high placebo effect, meaning basically the person believed it was going to work, so the belief itself was the thing that gave them the relief, it's bad for the study, because what the study is, they're like, we want to show that this active thing that we can sell and earn money from works more than the power of someone's mind. But if you're coming from the standpoint of, I just want to feel better, who cares how it works? And that's why I always come from, okay, what does this person's body need? And if they're responding well to that, and it's like, oh, okay, I can already tell that the power of your mind is amazing. Let's harness it. Let's actually use that to your advantage. And then also let's look at your functional health and give you the basic stuff that your body needs to actually feel good. Like maybe you feel crap because you haven't been outside and seen the sunshine and you haven't moved your body and you're eating crap food and you're scrolling and always looking through the same algorithm that actually makes you feel shit. Well, maybe you have a story in your head that you have to feel shit in order to eventually feel good. Like you have to go through the shit stuff and then you get the reward at the end of feeling good, or like whatever it is. There's so many different things that can come up from each person. Or maybe you have the story that you need to put everyone ahead of yourself before you can feel good. So many women have that, particularly mums. We're sort of conditioned into that society wise. And they're the women that I see that are like, oh, they had the heavy painful periods, but then they got pregnant and then then they just got this debilitating fatigue all the time, but they just had to push through because they're a mum and they have to make sure everyone else is happy. And then all of a sudden they start to get gallbladder issues and they need their gallbladder removed. And then in perimenopause, they really struggle. They get heaviness. They're fatigued and tired. Their hair's falling out. They gain weight and they can't lose it. It's like, now you need your uterus removed because you've got uterine fibroids. And now look, you've got all of these nodules on your thyroid and we'll medicate you for that, but we might have to remove that as well. It's like, hang on a freaking second. Maybe what's underneath all of this is you need to do the things energetically, what I think most people need to do. And what I've found for myself, when you actually do the shit that makes you feel alive, your body, aka your cells, feel alive. So they start to function better. But I think a lot of us think that we're doing things in order to get something and then we'll feel alive when we do that. Or we need to feel crap along the way and then we'll feel good. But I think that's something that I've learned a lot in the last probably 3 or 4 months since launching my book, is that the purpose of life is to feel good and to feel alive in the moment. Yes, you can work towards things, but you can feel good whilst you're doing it. And I think that's a really common, really, really common trend that I see amongst a lot of women and men too.
You've made some big moves over the last few years in terms of relocating, shifts in kind of how you do work, friendships, etc. What are some of those signs and symptoms for you, say pre and post? Signs and symptoms that you might not necessarily have been alive or even aligned, because it can be hard, like you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So for a lot of these people, I can only assume that they don't know what it feels like to be alive, or they don't know what it feels like to be aligned. But what, from your own personal experience, has been the difference? Like, how do you do life differently? How do you wake up in the morning differently? Like, what's different for you?
This is like, yeah, it's been really cool to reflect on this. I think pre 2020, I thought like my life was amazing, but I used to drink until I was blackout drunk. I would scroll on social media. I would be hanging around certain people. And then when I would leave, I'd be like, I didn't realize it, but when I look back now, I'm like, I don't actually feel better about myself. It was just like, oh, I need to do that because it's nice sort of hanging out with them, but then afterwards you're like, oh, I just feel a bit, like not so nice. And I think I was also, it's so interesting. I wouldn't ever call myself an overachiever or someone that is always like sort of that hustle culture or burnout or anything like that. But that is pretty much what I was like, where I would always be like, for instance, I started my second master's before I finished my first one, as an example. I would always be doing these things. But in my mind, when I was doing it, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm doing it because I love it. Like, I'm so interested. It's amazing. And yeah, I'm sitting inside writing this freaking 10,000 word essay and my friends are out at the beach or doing whatever, but I'm doing it for a reason. And it's like, it's going to help me help someone someday. But now I think what really hit home for me and what made me realize it was when I launched my book at this April this year. Leading up to it, and I do a lot of work with our mutual friend Pixie, who you put me in contact with, I was like getting this dreading feeling. Like I was like, if I know this book is going to be amazing and I want it to get out to so many people, but I also have this simultaneous, I don't, because there's going to be so many people that want help from me and it will kill me. Like I will literally die. I had this feeling that I was going to die because I was going to be so exhausted. And that's when I realized that I was like, oh, hang on a second, maybe I am exhausted. Like I didn't think that I was stressed. I was doing all of the ice baths and the breath work and saunas and like meditations and doing fun things. But in my mind, every time I woke up in the morning, it'd be like, okay, you got to do this. Like there would just be a long to-do list. It'd be like, okay, but meditation and breath work or whatever it is would be on the to-do list. But in my mind, I'd be thinking, remember you've got that email or what's going on with that patient or you've got to do this. Like there was always this got to do's and always feeling like I was behind. And then when you go to bed, it's you forgot to do that or this didn't happen. So it's like you didn't achieve everything. And then you wake up in the morning going, there's no way I'm going to achieve any of that anyway. So it was this constant, you feel like you're behind and never actually feeling when I'm in the moment, like I'm with my friends and I'm feeling it, all of it, or there's something really sad happening and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling all of it because I'm actually here. So what I realized from writing the book was because it was it was like a year-long process and it's such a big, I think in society, people go like, oh, wow, you've written a book. It's sort of like, it's not the equivalent, by no means the equivalent to a gold medal or anything, but like people will, it's sort of like an achievement that some people go, wow, that's a big thing. So I didn't want to squander that and go like, okay, I've done that. What's the next thing? Because I'm like, I know that's my pattern and I do not want to do that because this is like freaking taken everything from me and I've got nothing else to give. I just need to like chill. So I didn't want that. But what I realized in doing it was like, oh, I missed out on like the joy of just loving writing my first book, like on a day-to-day basis, sitting down and being like, I get to write this. Like, how amazing is that? So I think what it's really taught me and what I feel now, even if I'm having a crap day or a good day or a mediocre day or something amazing happens or something shit happens, I enjoy feeling it. Like that is my goal every day now is just to feel alive. That's it. So when I'm like, oh, should I make lunch at home or do I want to have sushi and go to the beach? It's like, no, I want to do that. That feels better. And it's not like a instant dopamine hit and you're always doing the things that feel amazing. It often actually is the thing that makes me feel, yeah, it's that feeling of aliveness that I get. And that's how I feel different now. It's just going like, oh, like this feels shit, but I sort of like it because I'm fully feeling it. Like the last thing I want to do is get to the end of my life and be like, I did all these amazing things. I wrote the book. I was on this billboard. I was talking here. I was doing this, but I was always focusing on the next thing. And I never actually got to feel it. And it's like, oh shit, I actually missed my life. I did all these things on paper, but I missed it all. And I think that's the main thing that has shifted for me hugely. And it feels amazing.
I like that. I'm stoked that you're feeling amazing. What do you think is at the core of, say, for example, your clientele? What's at the core of them not feeling alive and not feeling amazing? Like, what would you put that down to? If I think about the people in my world, there's similar to kind of your energy previously. There's such a busyness in the doing, in the kind of life by default where they're just on this autopilot and 12 months goes by and they're like, what the fuck? Like, I know I've been busy, but like what's actually been brought to life over the last 12 months? What do you notice in your world being a very different market to mine that's preventing people from really feeling alive and aligned?
I think one of the biggest things is that like you that is the default. Like, people think you have to earn it, or you can feel alive once the washing's done, once the kids are happy, once you've written the book, once you've done whatever the hell it is. But actually, that is the point of life. The point of life isn't to do all of these things. The point of life is to feel alive. That's it. And to have fun. You don't need to have a reason for it. I think that is the main thing. I think a lot of the women that I work with, and men as well, it's like, we need to have a reason to feel amazing. It's like, what happened? It's like, no, I just feel good. It's like, imagine if you said that. You're like, I feel amazing. It's like, oh my gosh, what's happening in your life? You're like, well, I just broke up with my partner, but like, like, it's just like, people, it's like, wait, what? You don't have it, like, but it's like, no, like, I'm fully fucking feeling everything. I think that's the thing. It's just giving yourself permission to do that, and permission to feel good and feel everything. Because I think when we don't and we shy away from it, that's when we aren't in that alignment or that integrity. And when we're out of that for a longer period of time, then our body gets louder and louder and louder. Like, the opposite of aliveness is death, right? And our cells are right now, both of our cells and also everyone listening, we have them simultaneously dying and simultaneously being created. So if we just go, okay, if I just do the things that actually make me feel alive, AKA that's going to keep you in alignment with what you want, then your cells will actually feel more alive, because that's what you're doing. You're programming them for that, and they'll want to do that. So I think the main thing is permission is a huge thing. Like, there's no, you don't have to earn it. You don't have to earn feeling good, and you don't deserve to feel bad. It's not like, don't take it so personally in a weird way.
So Bryony Weir, who spent a lot of time with those that were dying, what's the name of
Top 5 regrets of the dying.
yeah. What's the name of someone who has that role though? Can you remember it?
It's like a hospice worker.
Hospice worker.
Yeah.
So one of the top 5 regrets is that I didn't allow myself to be happy. I actually, you obviously know Shani and I very well. I resonate with that. And I haven't got to the core of it. I keep, for whatever reason, I was meant to do the work on it with Megs, and now I'm doing some work with Breeze, and we'll probably, hopefully, remember to kind of work. It just keeps getting pushed back for me as well. I wouldn't be able to tell you at the core of what it is, whether it's the permission bit. I also think as a kid, I was very happy, and people found me annoying, which is an interesting bit. But what permission did you need to overcome, or what story did you have to overcome to allow yourself to feel alive and happy and full?
I think, like, there had to be a reason, some reason, whether you've achieved something. A lot of it was achievement and work, like doing things. And like, in that, then it's sort of like, if you break that down, it's sort of like, well, you can't, it sort of made me not enjoy the process as much. Or like, I only enjoy the process if I was achieving little things along the way. And it's sort of like that, you get that little dopamine hit and things. But I think if you can think of aliveness as it's everything. Aliveness doesn't mean that it's always good, like, in any way. Like, you could be feeling crap and going through heartbreak or going through grief or whatever it is. But in a weird way, like, when you actually fully feel it, it feels so much better because you're not resisting it. You're not getting all of the additional things. So it's interesting, like, when you said when you were younger, like, you felt like you annoyed people when you were happy, like, well, like shadow work and things. It's like, well, obviously that was triggering something in them, because they're like, he's just happy because he's happy. Like, he didn't do anything for that, or he didn't, like, I didn't tell him that he could be, or he, like, look at his life. He hasn't won a gold medal yet, or he hasn't, like, done whatever the hell it needs to be, and he's happy. Like, what the hell? So I think if that's something that triggers you, I think that's a really clear sign that maybe that's what your body's telling you, that it just wants to feel happy just because.
Also, the implications from a health point of view of not allowing yourself to feel fully, whatever that is unbelievable. What do you think? Because obviously you work primarily with females. What do you think is at the core of females not feeling fully or allowing them to feel fully? What would you say is at the core of that?
I think, and like, also speaking from personal experience, like, trust me, I was not like this at all. I used to think that I would feel things, but I was definitely one to bottle up anger, and I'd just sort of, like, there'd be a little thing that would just send me off, or I would apologize for crying, or like any of those things. Like, I'd try and sort of have an even keel and not be too much one side or the other. But I think I think a lot of that came from, well, if I allow this emotion of whatever it is, then what happens if I just feel that all the time? What happens if that's me all the time and that's just what it's going to be? Like I had this fear and sort of this unsafe feeling of this is what my life's going to be like if I allow that part of me and then that's just going to take over. But what I have realized is that nothing lasts forever, and it actually, you're going to be okay on the other side. You're actually going to be even better. And when you don't judge that part of you that's feeling whatever, and you just take it as, oh, your body's trying to tell you something with this anger, for instance. Anger is telling you that a boundary is being crossed. Either you're angry at yourself or angry at someone else. It's like, okay, well, something's happened that you didn't like. Or resentment, you said yes to something when you really wanted to say no to it. And it's like, we know different parts of the body hold them. Say, for instance, anger is your liver, resentment is your gallbladder. So if you're noticing, and this, I would say, I don't actually know the stats, but working with patients when I was a chiropractor, I worked a lot with men and women of all different ages. And by far, women were way more likely to have gallbladder issues than men, way more. So there's a hormonal implication to that with different estrogen levels and the gallbladder opening. But also I do feel that a lot of the times women will put other people before themselves. Obviously men do too, but I find that that's quite a socialized norm for women. 100%. So then they build the resentment. Yeah.
I think as a general rule of thumb, and I'd be interested in your opinion from a female point of view, females are generally probably told they're too much and men are probably told they're not enough. And for that reason, again, I can only assume, but spending a fair bit of time with females in my life, there's a deep suppression of their fullest expression. And it's interesting, I don't know about your experience, but when I think about like you, Megs, Bree, Shani, SJ, like a lot of our girlfriends, my favorite parts of you girls are the parts that, not intentionally, but the parts of you that have been suppressed in former relationships or former environments. Like I fucking love your big energies. And it's interesting. I remember Megs and I had this conversation because she said the same thing to me once. She's like, I think we're talking about, former lives and former friendship groups. And she kind of spoke to that of there was a real healing component that happened for me in the moment where she was like, you know what? I know the parts of you that have been denied in the past, and they're my favorite bits. And there's something super liberating in that. Is that a theme amongst your girlfriends, your female clients, that like too much component, whether it's from a partner, previous partner, society? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think you can get that from other people. I used to have people in my life that I felt like that. And it was interesting on a personal level. That's what I thought from writing the book and things. I was like, what are people going to think? They're going to think now she's up herself, or now she thinks this about herself or whatever. And I'm like, none of that happened. Everyone was so happy for me. I'm like, oh, whoa, I'm not used to that. That's amazing. But it's really cool because then it gives you permission to be like, oh yeah, that is amazing. And it doesn't change you at your core, but it's really nice to be able to lean into that feeling of like, you can be more. I think that's a thing. But also I think, yeah, it's helping women be able to feel that for themselves and know that. I think it's harnessing the safety within yourself is always going to be the best thing. And sometimes that's really hard. So you need people around you that can give that to you in the beginning. So then, if you are around people that can't do it, that it isn't anything wrong with you. It's a reflection of them.
For those that don't understand what you just mean, what do you mean by harnessing the safety within?
So as I've said before, like I used to not want to feel anything. I'd sort of shut it down. And now, by now, I feel a lot. Like my body will.
It does. The tremor's like nobody I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Yeah, I shake quite a bit. And my body will often tell me before I consciously realize what I'm feeling. And also you get that little intuitive hit or whatever you want to call it, where you're just like, that just didn't feel good. Like you feel it in your body, like I want to move away, or it's like it feels like constriction, feels like tightness, resistance. And you're like, okay, that is an energetic whisper of your body being like, that's not good for some reason. And I think when women can feel that first, connect to their body, trust it. And then when you have the safety in your body to go, I don't need someone else to say, oh, that's valid that you feel like that. You can just say to yourself, that's valid that you feel like that, and you can act on it. I think that's that is the most amazing thing that you can do for yourself and your body, because then you will deepen the connection even more. Every single time you feel something is just off for some reason and you trust it and you act in that way, that connection gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's the thing that keeps you in alignment. And when you're in alignment, you get less symptoms physically with your body.
You're a fucking Jedi. You always just bring magic, which is so good to see. For those that want to find out more about you, the work you do, your book, where should we send all these beautiful humans?
You can follow me on Instagram. So it's Dr. Anthea Todd. So DR, not the full doctor. And also my website is called femalefundamentals.com.au.
You're a Jedi. God
Thanks,
bless you and everything that you bring to the world.